as the Associate Director of Alumni Career Engagement, which is a part of the UCLA Alumni Association. And our team specifically has the honor of working with our Sharpe Fellows program. And that is who is hosting our program tonight. And so with that, I really want to hand over to our distinguished fellows as they lead our panel tonight, and we learn all about the different opportunities that are available to you all in terms of careers in business. So with that, Ashvin, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Amanda. I'm really looking forward to a great evening. We're going to have some really excellent conversations. First, want to start by introducing the Sharpe Fellowship and what we do here. This is founded in 2008, actually. The Sharpe Fellowship was created to engage UCLA alumni, community members, and employers in a number of different ways, from career planning to mentorship to leadership. So we have quarterly business meetings where we talk about some of the most salient issues in terms of diversity and sustainability, and how we can create business innovations to solve some of these most pressing challenges. Really, one of my favorite things is bringing together smart people from business and technology and finance, all in a conversation about some of these really important topics. So I'm glad we get to continue that here with the Early Careers in Business panel. We have some fantastic speakers that Aneri will introduce, but we're going to take the first half an hour to sort of go through some questions that we've prepared, and then we'll turn it over to some audience questions at the end. So Aneri, if you want to go ahead and introduce our panelists.
Yeah, I'd love to. So our first panelist is Shurjan Hussaini. He was the founder of Shurjan.com and has mentored over 20,000 students globally and provided them with a competitive edge in a broad range of fields from tech to finance. He was vice president in investment banking at Morgan Stanley and an associate at Capital G, which is Google's late stage investment arm. He comes with experience from a wide range of companies in the corporate world, including RBC Capital Markets and Accenture. He received a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering, so for all the engineers out there, and from the University of Toronto, and a Master's in Financial Engineering at the UCLA Anderson School of Management. Thank you, Shurjan, for being here. Next up, we have Adele Young, who is a director at EY Parthenon, which is a large strategy consultancy firm with over 6,500 professionals committed to delivering actionable strategies for real impact in today's business landscape. Prior to joining EY Parthenon, she worked at Integrated Capital, a real estate private equity firm, and JP Morgan as a summer associate in their private banking group. She received a bachelor's degree in economics, political science, and environmental systems and society from UCLA, where she was also the captain of the women's water polo team. And Adele has also received her MBA from the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. So welcome, Adele. And then last up, we have Praveen Sridharan, who is a program manager at PayPal, where he is responsible for roadmap planning and portfolio management for the product development organization. Previously, Praveen held various business and engineering roles in Singapore and India. He began as an assistant systems engineer at Tata Consultancy Services in Chennai after he graduated from the PSG College of Technology with a Bachelor's of Arts in Computer Engineering. He later received his MBA and then moved to Singapore, first to work at Barclays and then at Citi. Right now, his current role is at PayPal in San Francisco, and he's passionate about solving customer problems using technology and strongly believes in the platform as product philosophy. So welcome, Praveen, as well. It's so great to have all of you out here today. So because this is an Understanding Career in Business panel, I just wanted to first kick this off with a brief discussion about what your careers consist of. What does your day-to-day responsibilities look like? Yeah, and we can just kind of get started with very high-level introduction of what you do.
Who's going? Aneri, should I go first?
Yeah, sure, John. Yeah, why don't you kick it off?
Oh, okay, got it. Hey, everybody. Great to see fellow Bruins, and thanks, Aneri and the team for inviting me. So like Aneri said, my career has been in a bunch of different verticals, but if you had to kind of break it down into 3 different verticals, it was investment banking. So I worked in tech investment banking at Morgan Stanley in Menlo. And then I did another round of investment banking in Hong Kong, covering the private equity sector. in the middle of those two jobs, I had a role at Google as an investor. So that's my second category of work that I've done, investing in late stage companies, mostly in tech, both in North America and Asia. And the third segment of my career has been building, which is entrepreneurship. So for the last 4 years or so, I've been out of the corporate America world, not wearing suits anymore, and building startups. So I have one failed startup under my belt. So now I'm on to my second one. And hopefully that one works out, unless otherwise my parents are going to disown me. So that's kind of my story.
Awesome. Adele, if you want to go next.
Yeah, definitely. We can go in like introduction order here. So to answer, like tactically to answer the question about like, what does my day-to-day life look like as a consultant? First, consulting is a very broad term and can mean like a billion different things. And so my experience is going to be very different than someone that you speak to even at EY Parthenon or certainly at other firms. But on a day-to-day basis, I personally do a lot of market research for specifically for private equity firms to help inform their investments when they're thinking about making an investment in a new portfolio company. And I can explain, if helpful, what a private equity firm even is, because I didn't know up until like 6 months into working at one. But essentially what I do is call experts or write surveys or find research online to better understand industries and help inform and advise private equity firms when they're thinking about making an investment. And so day to day, it's speaking with experts and then talking to my team about what we learned and how that impacts a potential investment for our clients. And over the long term, what it means is I'm like learning every day. Every month I get to work in a new industry and learn about a new kind of niche. And I kind of feel like I'm in school doing a new case interview or case like learning every month.
Thank you for that overview about consulting. And then Praveen, if you want to kick it off with PayPal.
Thank you. I mean, what I do is not nearly as exciting as the other two folks, quite frankly. Our works are, I mean, the industry that I'm in is fintech, and I've been in fintech since the start of my career. Specifically, what I do at work in PayPal is, let me put it this way, so it's predominantly product roadmap planning. So if you look at PayPal, the amount of products that we offer, there's a variety. There's a suite of products that we offer. Now, I'm responsible for a very specific suite, and usually there are multiple different problems that are there to solve, and we can add value to customers in different ways. Now, my job responsibility is to make sure that we are actually investing in the right problem to solve, and more importantly, how do you like sort of look at the customer, I mean, success, how do you define success, for example, and then based on that success measure, how do you prioritize and what exactly are we going to invest in? So that's predominantly where I'm involved in. Day-to-day activities, it's very much like what are we currently having right now in the roadmaps? What are we expecting to like launch to the customers on a quarter basis or on a yearly basis? Is that even relevant as we go through all these changes? COVID is an amazing example. It actually like sort of threw a trench in whatever we were having as plans and completely changed what we wanted to do over the course of the year. So that's in a nutshell who I am and what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. Thank you for that explanation as well. My next question is like, what do you like the most and least about the jobs that you guys are currently working in? And then sure, John, if you want to speak both to the entrepreneurship aspect and the banking aspect as well. And then the point of this question is kind of so that the students listening can see like what they have to gain, but also, maybe like a little bit of like what's at stake or is maybe not as enjoyable about the job.
Cool. So in investment banking, so as an analyst and as a VP, so I did analyst associate and VP, the role changes quite a bit. The things I loved as an analyst was it's a pretty fast learning environment. You're you're making a lot of money as an analyst, and it's the wrong reason to join a company, investment banking, but that was my reason to make some money, and I did it. So as an analyst, you love the paycheck, you love the bonuses, but you hate the long hours, you hate the work-life balance. I remember in my first 4 months, I gained 18 pounds because it's just too much stress. And when I started, I had hair, but then quickly lost it. So definitely there are effects to your physical appearance as you do that. So that was the part that I think I hated the most. And then hardest part I think also was just balancing as many number of projects, because if you have 10-15 MDs who are all supposed to bring in good business, and you only have 10-15 analysts underneath them, and each analyst is working on 5 to 6 deals, sometimes it's just close to impossible to get the work done at least at that quality. So I think as an analyst, that was the challenge. As I got into the career a bit more and as a VP, I think the job becomes more fun, but it also becomes very monotonous. When you're senior, yes, you're meeting clients and stuff, but the negative parts are now you managing analysts who never show up on time or are too tired sometimes, things like that. But I love the job, but the only part that I didn't like about it was like when you see that job after you're a VP, it's pretty much the same for the next 10-15 years, and to me that wasn't something that I was excited about. So I decided to do more entrepreneurship side of things. So on the entrepreneurship side, I think the best way to describe it is, I love the job 29 days of the month, meaning I get to do what I want to do. I wake up when I want to wake up. I have full control over my time and my calendar. And that's that freedom has a price to it, right? So, and the beautiful thing is you wake up happy, because every day I wake up, I'm excited to build the product that we're building, or go hire the next amazing engineer in my company, or go convince a bunch of investors to give us money, or convince a bunch of customers to buy our product or use our product. So, there's no certain agenda to the day, and it's full of challenges and ups and downs. So that part is fun. The negative part, like I said, is 29 days of the month are awesome because you're creative. The one day that I hate is the payday, because you don't make the same money as you did in investment banking. But that's the trade-off of doing entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and I think going to a job for the money is a very real thing, right? Because it's all about understanding and identifying what is important to you. And so if the paycheck is worth the 18 pounds in 4 months, then that's fine too, right? It's identifying what is most important and brings you joy. I often find myself being like, well, I'm working on the weekend again, but I feel really valued and well compensated. And so I'm okay doing that. Right. And so I kind of, that's just my perspective. I think it's fine to, and accurate to admit if money is a real driver. Right. I kind of started to identify some of the things that I really like about my job. One, I feel like I'm learning. So I feel like I'm in school in a new class kind of every month or so as I'm getting to learn about different industries. And while that can be overwhelming, because within 3 weeks, I'm expected to go from literally never even knowing that something existed to being able to advise really smart people on a really big decision that they're going to make. It's also really empowering to see how much you can learn really quickly. Of course, it's a lot of work. As Sridharan said, it's the hours in consulting aren't quite what they are in banking, but they do require a lot of late nights, and they require a lot of weekend work. But as I mentioned, I personally find that to be completely doable, at least for myself right now, because I am interested in the work that I'm doing. I feel valued from a personal and professional perspective, and I feel like I'm getting compensated well. The other thing that I really love about my job is that I work really closely with like a small team of people. So teaming and the like the team aspect of consulting, it was really attractive to me. As Aneri mentioned, I played on the club water polo team. I didn't play on the national champion water polo team. That would be badass. And I had plenty of friends on that team, but that was not my team. But playing team sports was always a big thing for me growing up. And so finding a job that was very team oriented was really valuable to me. And so that is an element that makes the work not feel as crazy or the hours not feel as long, because especially when we were in the office, not a little bit less so in this remote world, but chatting, taking breaks and coffee breaks or dinner breaks with my teammates, or chatting about, you know, whatever while we're working was fun, and it made work not feel as much like work. One thing that I realized while working at EY, so Ernst & Young, the big accounting firm, which is kind of the parent company of the smaller consulting firm, EY Parthenon, that I work at, is working for a big company, especially a financial services company. There are so many restrictions to a lot of what you can do professionally, but also personally sometimes. So there are certain stocks that I can't invest in because EY audits those companies, and it would be against SEC rules, right? And then on the professional side, like when we're trying to do our work, there are certain processes and steps that we need to go through that if we were a smaller company would just not be a consideration or not be a requirement, because we wouldn't be audited by the SEC, you know? And so something to think about. That's something that is on a day-to-day basis, not a big deal, but on the like more macro scale, as I think about longer term, what kind of company I want to work for, it's probably a smaller one to not have to deal with those kind of annoyances on a day-to-day basis. But I don't know, just something as I think about like the different companies I've worked for, the sky's the limit at a company like EY that has 300,000 or 400,000 people, but there's also a lot of limitations to what you can do too.
I basically echo what is comments here. So what I really like at PayPal is I mean, especially given the role that I play, it's the view that I have of all the things that are happening across the breadth of PayPal. So we are a small team, a nuclear team, and what we're responsible for is different portfolios, and the entirety of the portfolio covers all that we do at PayPal. So again, people are smart here in fintech, and there's, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of problems that we can solve at any point in time. Now, one of the aspects of the job is to look at what are these different ideas that the people come up with. Is it worth investing in? And there's a lot of additions to it as well, in the sense that can we get the returns as soon as possible, or is it going to be a longer term investment? So all those nuances, and the moment you get closer to it on a day-to-day basis, you start looking at those numbers, and if you like numbers and if you are interested in like new ideas, etc., it's very eye-opening, and it's very nice to be in that state. So that's the thing that I like about the role that I currently play. And what I dislike is this, right? Like again, I mean, if there are 10 ideas, you're obviously going to select the top 5 or the top 3, probably based on the budget that each of these ideas are going to attract. So how do you actually like postpone the remaining ideas? So at times these ideas are like sort of, it doesn't make sense for an idea to be worked on or to be invested if it's not the right time. So how do you actually get back to those smart people and say, you know what, it's not the right time, or maybe we should be considering it in the next cycle for all intents and purposes. So those are the kind of things which are hard, if you will, but it's what helps you grow professionally as well. So those are the things which are difficult. I wouldn't say dislike, but it's difficult, but that helps you grow. So those are the couple of things that I would like to call out in the current role that I play.
Man, it's so great to hear these snapshots into your professional lives. I love the sort of transitions that you guys have made. Help us understand as college students how you sort of got started in these roles. If for a new person, can you tell us some stories maybe about what inspired you to take this path? We can start in a different order. Praveen, do you wanna kick us off this time?
Sure. See, when quite frankly, when I started out of college, it was 2007, 2008. So at that time, if I'm not wrong, that was the time when Facebook was like sort of just launching, or it was like 2 years after it launched. Twitter was very new. So there was a lot of data that was available for us to like sort of just get our hands to. So I was very interested in data at that point in time. So I really wanted to do something in data field. And I did my computer science engineering actually. And data was predominantly one of the things that I've been working on in my projects and whatnot. So that interest sort of sparked me into the internships opportunities that I was looking for, and also the projects that I wanted to like get involved in. So that's how it sort of led to my first job, I would say. Quite honestly, I had three offers with me. One was with Tata Consultancy Services. I mean, I was actually working for how should I put this, a top fintech firm as well. I was consulting for that fintech firm there, and another couple of offers those were hardcore technical. So I was drawn to the fact that I'm not just using data and the technology piece alone, but I'm also like sort of in touch with the customers. So it's always good to have that balance of technology versus the customer and the customer, sorry. So if you have the balance right, or if an opportunity provides you that the balance, then I would definitely like recommend people looking at that. And that was my entry into the corporate field, and that's how I got it.
That's awesome. Adele, do you want to add on anything to that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like my decision-making process when I was in school. And I think that it was not as thoughtful or or purposeful as like perhaps my resume would imply. I like thought about the classes that I really liked, and they were my econ classes. I really liked money and banking, and I really liked like environmental economics, and so I thought about those, and then I thought about like outside of classes, like what are things that are important to me, and some of the things were like understanding financial responsibility and investing. And so as I like started to apply to jobs, I just applied to stuff that sounded like it aligned with some of those things. And so when I was at UCLA, I interned at Northwestern Mutual, which is like a life insurance company, to learn about what that was, right? And then I ended up at my job out of school because I knew I wanted to do like something financial related, but I didn't pursue any sort of like accounting background, which is really important if you're going into investment banking. Also, I had no idea what investment banking was, and I would not have been qualified had I tried to pursue it anyway. So I just thought about like, I literally read jobs on Bruin and thought about like, oh, does this sound interesting to me? Sure, might as well try it. It's not, and knowing and thinking that it probably wouldn't be the last job that I have. And then each step of the way kind of identifying what I liked about that job and what I wanted to get out of the next one, and test and try what I wanted to keep and what I wanted to change as I kind of went to the next step.
So guys, from my side, so I was an engineer, like Neri mentioned, aerospace engineering, and I was a pretty shitty aerospace engineer. I had a GPA which was lower than 3.0. So, with that background, you don't make it to any of these firms. But my first internship, or one of my first internships, was in an engineering role at a nuclear plant. And I learned a key lesson there, which was like, if you look up in your company and you look at your manager or their boss, the folks who are crushing it, no matter how good you are at your job, like let's say you totally crush it and you're the best, after 10 years or after 15 years, you're going to have that job. And if that job is not for you and you don't feel excited about your boss's job or their boss's job, then it's probably not a good career path for you. So at that moment, knowing that I wasn't good at engineering to begin with, and I didn't like the the profession in terms of what it felt like and what the vibe was, I said, look, I want to do something else. And in my third year, junior year, I had an internship at Accenture, because a lot of engineers, when they want to not do engineering, they end up going towards consulting. So I tried to get into McKinsey, Bains of the world, didn't get in, got into Accenture. But the summer of that year, we had like a happy hour. And an interesting thing happened where the happy hour I was at, there were a lot of other interns from that same tower downtown, same building downtown. And one of the groups of people were these investment banking analysts, summer analysts from some of the Canadian investment banks in Toronto. And I saw these guys and I was like, oh my God, look at them. They have like these amazing shoes. They got like a real watch. Their shoes have laces on them. And I was like, man, I want to get those, whatever job that is, I want to get that job. So, with my background, I was just like, I want to get something that felt like a walled garden, or get into that walled garden. And Accenture, knowing that also I was one of the only interns not to get a return offer, because they're like, this guy wants to be an investment banker. So that leads me to my UCLA journey, where, I graduated in 2009, which was a downturn of the economy. It was a financial crisis. So I graduated without a job. And my only hope of second chance was, let's go do a second degree. And in that second degree, if I can kind of A, choose a degree which I would be able to get a higher GPA in, B, I could network, and C, learn from people who have been in that industry, say investment banking, and learn from them. And hopefully they can help me kind of pull me into the ballpark. And that's what Anderson and UCLA alumni did. But yeah, so that's kind of like how I ended up where I ended up.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love these stories, and sort of Adele's comment about going from insurance to finance. This really highlights the sort of non-linearity of experience that I think is echoed by so many people in our colleagues. I'm curious, we all sort of looking back from hindsight, but I'm curious, at the time, were there any expectations that you had about the industries that you're going into that sort of did not match up with reality when you eventually got there? Anybody want to share any stories? Yeah, go ahead, Shashank.
I got a good one. I'll be a quick one. I think everybody who goes into investment banking, at least back then, used to read these books called Monkey Business, and there's a couple of other ones that are kind of the known books for, and they'll watch like Wall Street, the first one, and a couple of other finance movies. And you see all this like lifestyle of being in black cars and limousines and always private jets and making tons and tons of money. The truth is, it's not like that, right? It's when you actually show up, like the image of investment banking is a bunch of Patrick Batemans, right? But it's actually not a bunch of Patrick Batemans. It's a bunch of like Chinese, Indian, like people just like this chat right here, and it's a very multicultural group of people that are really good at numbers and are hardworking. A lot of them come from immigrant families and stuff. So the actual bullpen looks very different than what you think about the movies. And the money at the end of the year isn't actually that great. Like, the way I remember it, even at Morgan Stanley, I always thought I was going to make a ton of money. But then when I actually got there, it's kind of like, okay, expectations were a lot different. So and you'll never meet an investment banking analyst or associate who's like, oh my God, I loved my bonus this year, unless they're the top of the cream of the crop, which is very hard to be. If you're middle bucket, usually, which most people are, and I was, you're not really like, rolling in dough. But having said that, back then, we didn't have the options of like, you guys have amazing opportunities in, all these tech companies that have popped up in the last 10 years or so, which I think are a much better paths to be in personally, if I was coming out of college now. But back then, joining a Facebook was kind of like, oh, why would you not join McKinsey or Bain, right? Why would you go join the small company? But the truth is that would have been a better option, right? And now there's so many of these cool, amazing companies, like, like Praveen's mentioning in the fintech space and every other space from, all the way up and down the coast. So I think in terms of the money part, that was a big, caution. I was like, oh shit, this is not going to be the way it is. The second piece, which was how hard it actually is in terms of just your mental stress and ability to handle all the, the work pressure and ability to manage all these streams and, waking up every day at 8 a.m. and working till 2 or 3 a.m. I didn't think it was going to be that hard, but it does become really, really hard at sometimes. And it's important to kind of pause and, take a break, take a step back and manage your personal expectation for health, mental and physical. And then, so yeah, so those two things were kind of the, misrepresentation of how hard it was going to be.
The first thing that comes to mind is like, I can't think of anything, but that's because I literally when I was an undergrad, I didn't know what investment banking was. I didn't know what consulting was. So I had no expectations. The one thing now that I have been a consultant for almost 4 years is that I think that there's a perception of like traveling being really glamorous. And I'm actually lucky in that the work that I do is completely possible to do in the office. So like I go to the EY office in downtown LA every day in the normal world, right? Like I don't do that right now. Obviously I'm at my home. But so thankfully I do not like travel, Sunday through Thursday, Monday through Thursday, even Monday through Wednesday. But on the days or the weeks that I have traveled mostly for recruiting or other events, it's really not glamorous. While you do earn points and miles so that you can take like awesome vacations for free, it's also really grueling because you have all of the inconveniences of traveling, which is getting on an airplane, like being squished in a seat. Even if you're in first class because you travel a lot and you get upgraded, like it's still not that convenient, and the Wi-Fi goes out, and it prevents you from working efficiently. And even through all that stuff, you have a ton of work to do. So I would just say, as you're thinking about, that's one of the really big values of doing an internship, for example, in an industry. I had a friend in business school who tried out consulting for the summer, and she hated the travel. And so she was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this for my job because it doesn't work for me. And so just understanding that something that sounds really sexy could end up not being that way, or you could love it too. You can be like, yeah, I don't care if I'm stuck in a seat, like T-Rex arms, like trying to type something, because I love the benefits of being able to go to Bali for free or something like that. But that's the one thing that I think is a big misperception about consulting specifically.
One of the perceptions that I had when I came out of college and when I went into one of these big firms, right? So usually in college, we see our colleagues, everybody not organized to the extent that we would like to be organized. And when I went to one of those big firms, I was under the impression that everything would have been figured out and everything would be working like the way it should. But that's never the case. And in all the companies that I've been working for the past decade, none of the companies have figured it out. So in any role that you're going to play, the reason why your role or position exists is because you're expected to solve a problem which is happening in the first place. Now, the moment you get in, you start looking at, okay, what exactly is your role? How is what is expected of you in the sense that the intent why the role was created in the first place? What is your upstream, downstream dependencies? All those good stuff that you need to understand the entire arena itself. And then you start smartly looking at how do you solve this problem. So it's the perception that I had and what I had to go through to ensure that you get to deliver whatever you are expected to deliver in the most efficient way. It's going to be incremental steps. It's not going to be possible in a day or two. So that perception was shattered the moment I entered any of these big firms. And that was a big learning for me. So that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you all so much for sharing that. I personally find it super helpful just to hear other people's thought processes and experiences. So yeah, that was all really insightful. But just continuing with talking about your experiences in the workforce, all of you have worked at various places. So we'd love to learn more about how you switched from each job to the next, more about what prompted the change, how did you go about finding a new role, and just what kind of things we should look out for when we're trying to find a new job. And I think anyone can start.
Yeah, I can start. I personally am, maybe it's because I'm a settler, but I've actually only changed jobs and changed roles when I've when I've had like a segue or a specific like reason or setup to do so. And so similar to Sharjan, when he went to Anderson, I spent 4 years at the private equity firm that I worked at, and I loved it, but I just wanted to explore and experience other things. And I found also similarly, when I was first interviewing for jobs out of UCLA, everyone who I interviewed with had an MBA. So I was like, okay, well, if I want to get to this level eventually, then I'm probably going to have to do that too. And so that was something that was kind of in the back of my mind, and I knew that I probably wanted to pursue. And I found that my learning curve at the firm that I was at was just kind of flattening. And so I applied to business school, and that was a really kind of easy way to transition into a different career. Business school in general is accepting of people from all backgrounds. I had classmates who were veterans who had only worked in the or been in the Marine Corps. I had classmates who were teachers. I had classmates who worked in construction, and then I had classmates who worked at Accenture and worked in investment banks. So it's a wide swath of experience going to a postgraduate degree like that, and it's very set up to help people with all backgrounds be successful in achieving and finding jobs in a variety of kind of traditional industries, including the ones that we're in: consulting, investment banking, tech, marketing, things like that. And so that was I kind of took the easy road, where I haven't found any jobs for myself yet. I've just done it through kind of institutionalized processes, but they've been really successful, and I've had certainly a good experience doing that.
I can go next. See, when I initially started, it's all about expectations. So when I initially started, my expectation was very low, in the sense that, again, as I mentioned, we had 3 offers in hand, and the simple rule that we had was like, whoever pays more, we just go join the firm. That would, full transparency, that's exactly how we sort of pick the firms. Now, once you get into the industry, then you start looking at, 3 basic things that I would call out. One is the product that your firm or your company is like offering to the different customers that you have. Second is the processes that are being used in that firm. And thirdly, the people who you work with. These 3 are very, very important from my perspective in whatever firm that you are in and whatever industry that you're in. So to call out some examples, right? Like if you are, again, my view is sort of limited to product and tech, excuse me. So within product and tech, if I were to look at companies like Google or Apple, like Google, if one reason that I would like to join Google is the framework that they use, which is the prioritization framework. It's called the OKRs, objectives and key results, and that's very, very good for any person to like prioritize and get their work done. And if you look at Apple, the products that they have, the speed of it, just the sense of you being a part of a product which is going to change customer lives forever, that in itself is very big. And then fintech companies, like I'm happy that I was part of the crypto launch that we had in PayPal. So that was a game changer for our company. And so those are the kind of things that we need to start looking at before we start questioning, like, what exactly is the firm that we would like to join and be a part of? And when do you actually start looking for is, as Adele mentioned, like whenever your learning curve sort of flattens, or if you are there in a specific company to learn something. For example, if you join Google for understanding the processes that they follow, or if you're, for example, if you're joining there for a specific product. I was part of a, meaning when one of my consulting, iterations, I was expected to like do a transformation of product development from a waterfall model into a agile model, or the agile transformation. Once you, it's very intense in the sense that you have to look at both at a high level what planning happens and how the plan is getting transferred into the like day-to-day lives of people and how they start like consuming the plan and getting into reality. And it's very intense in the sense that you'll be part of that process, you'll be part of the project, and running with it. And once you cross the initial hurdles, it's more becoming into a maintenance mode for all intents and purposes. So once you get into that maintenance mode, you're not really like involved to the level that you would expect to get involved there. And secondly, it becomes monotonous. So that is a good indicator that, you know what, you've achieved whatever you're supposed to achieve in that specific role. Now let's start looking for another role, either within the same company if you're liking the industry and the company itself, or you can look for other companies, maybe in the same industry or in a different industry. So that's how I would like approach the change of role or a position.
Yeah, so for me, I've changed a lot of jobs, right? And geographies and roles. The way I thought about life is, or think about life is, as when you're, coming out of college, and a lot of you are, in college and, will graduate soon. The next 10 years is, imagine yourself as being an alien coming to planet Earth and walking into a Haagen-Dazs store. Like every ice cream flavor is unknown to you. And it's kind of good to go try a few things, either as internships like Adele mentioned, or, 2-year gigs, 3-year gigs. There are no wrong steps. And if you do that for 10 years, you'll kind of know what are some of the flavors you love. And then you can kind of, go double down on those flavors for your next 10 years and so on in your career. So my first job after UCLA was at Houlihan Lokey in Century City, which is a small middle market investment bank. And, I was super grateful for that job. And I've always been grateful for the things that I've had, but I was not satisfied, right? And I think one of the things I've learned in life is whatever you get from your hard work, your parents' hard work, your friends' support, everybody involved, and luck, you should be super grateful for even being in this, webinar and in the school you're in and all the options you have. But if you become satisfied, then you can become plateaued a little bit, and you can kind of miss some of the opportunities that come towards you. So for me, I always had the dream of being at the best investment bank, and within that, in the best group. And I knew it was impossible because Morgan Stanley Tech in Menlo Park, literally they only hire from Harvard, Stanford, Berkeley, and Wharton. That was kind of the DNA of the shop. And I, went through UCLA alumni directory every night and found anybody and everybody who I could find who was an alumni from UCLA, would, cold email them every night and say, hey, can I get a shot at Morgan Stanley, just an interview. So the first 5 months of Houlihan Lokey was great, but then I, started finding a path to hopefully a better bank, a bigger brand, for a lot of different reasons. And that's how that's why I transitioned. So I was at Houlihan only for 6 months or so. And then Morgan Stanley was like a dream come true for me, super happy. And I felt like a fly on the wall, just seeing all these people that were twice as smart as me, around me doing all these amazing things. I remember one of my first clients was Airbnb, and Airbnb had like a 4-person like office, and it was so small. They didn't even have an Excel file for their financial model back then. And this is back, all the way in 2011, 2012 or something like that. So the transition from banking to Google was a lot of analysts, even in consulting as associates or an analyst in investment banking, after 2 years, either you get kind of burnt out, or usually you kind of move on to other opportunities. And for most people, those opportunities end up being private equity, right? Growth equity. But most people want to do private equity. Now, it's kind of like that herd mentality that because, hey, if Jenny's going to KKR, I should go to KKR. But that shouldn't be the right way of thinking about it, because you got to really figure out slowly as time goes by, what are you good at and what do you love doing, right? Both those things combined is what's going to be helpful. So I knew that I wasn't good at Excel modeling and LBOs and those financial analysis. I was a middle of the bucket analyst, but my skills were different. My skills were like, you can give me a unthinkable problem or something that's super complex, and I'll figure out a way to get it done, right? If you tell me, Sharjan, I need you to be in Hong Kong tonight, I'll figure it out. I'll be there, right? And I'll make it happen. So for me, ability to kind of break barriers, cold email, go into rooms and be in rooms that I don't belong in was kind of like my forte. And that kind of led me to like, hey, look, I'd enjoy the venture side of investing a lot more than the private equity, deep in the numbers side of investing a lot more. So Google back then was starting a new group, which was back then called Google Capital. Now it's called Capital G. And they were looking for their first associate. And I was anti-Google to begin with. I've always been an Apple fanboy, but that was the perfect opportunity because it's like, hey, this is a small team. It was only 4 people or 5 people back then. And it felt like a sandbox of an opportunity. And I love sandboxy roles versus super structured, like, hey, here's your job, come on in, here's your cubicle, click these buttons every day, and then 5 o'clock you can leave. So I didn't want to be in those roles. So for me, Google was like that in the beginning, where it was very sandboxy. I could get on a plane, go to places. I even even renounced my Pakistani. I'm originally from Pakistan ethnically. I even renounced my Pakistani citizenship because I was like, let's go invest in India. And India wouldn't give Pakistani-born folks visas on their Canadian. I'm Canadian, but I said, you know what? I'm so excited about this idea and this business, so I became the international guy. But then leaving Google came about because then Google's role, when the fund becomes big, becomes very structured. So here's your cubicle, here's 9 to 5, big company, big company politics and stuff. So for me, at that time, I'd built enough of a relationship in Asia and Hong Kong, and then I wanted to kind of be in Asia. So Morgan Stanley was like, hey, why don't you just come here? We're starting a new group in private equity covering the Asia space. So then I moved there. And then the last transition I made was when I got promoted to VP. Like I said before, the role becomes very monotonous. You get an office, yes, you have a window in that office, you get sunlight finally. But the only difference is, your suits get slightly better. You can slightly get a better paycheck, but at the end of the day, the work you do is the same. Like, you'll check a bunch of documents, sign them off, and the rat race continues. So I kind of gave myself a shot at like, hey, can I create a new role within Morgan Stanley for me? And which was like covering tech companies in Singapore. But the firm said, no, we can't do that. Why don't you cover Chinese tech companies in China? And I wasn't passionate about that because I don't speak Mandarin and it just wouldn't be a fit for me. So then I said, okay, you know what? There's a famous quote from Tom Hiddleston, we all have 2 lives. The second one starts when you realize you only have one. So I was like, you know what, let's get out of corporate America. I can always come back if I have to. Morgan Stanley can make that mistake 3rd time if they wanted to. And so I started my startup. And that was like, if another situation where I'm not feeling happy waking up, going to work every day. Let's change the situation, change the role, and give yourself that 2 to 5 year kind of trial period of entrepreneurship. So those have been all the transitions I've made from different spots.
Wow, it's really interesting to hear how Praveen kind of started his career back when like Facebook was pretty early stage, and then Sharjan worked with like an early stage Airbnb. Like now those companies are huge. But now I guess looking more towards the future, what kind of plans do you guys all have career-wise? Do you think you want to keep moving up on the same line of work, or I guess how do you envision the next 10 years to be for yourselves?
I can start. Let me put it this way. See, so far what I've enjoyed, what I've learned is what are the different products. Again, this is in the fintech space. So the products that I sort of love, and the problems that I love solving. So given this base, if you will, I would like to start looking. I mean, my plan over the next 5 or 10 years is to look at the challenges that I could solve using the skills that I've gained. Quite frankly, that is exactly what I'm trying to do. Now, have I identified the positions that have exactly like helped me do that? Absolutely not. Am I still figuring it out? Yes, every day. Now, will I be able to like get that? Eventually, yes, but is it going to be my next immediate change? I don't know. So what I'm trying to say is like, I'm as long as I'm loving the problems that I'm solving. Like everybody is solving a specific problem. So as long as you love the problem that you solve, or I mean, if I find a position which is going to like help me solve a specific problem for a specific set of customers, then I would be more than happy to like continue in that specific position. So as long as it gives me the learning opportunities and I'm like liking the problems that I've solved, I would like to continue. And the second thing that I would like to do is, again, it's not just look at. I mean, quite frankly, the other 2 folks, like they've had a lot more experience than I am, in the sense that they've explored a lot in that sense. I'm actually starting to do that, in all honesty. So I would like to explore a little bit. I mean, I've been in 3 different places or 4 different places, but it's been monotonous in the same fintech industry. So I'd like to try energy sector. So that's what I'm planning to do. So it's basically a mix of industry, the position, and the problem that you're trying to solve. So I'd be happy if I actually find a fit which is helping me like solve like problems that I like, and then in an industry which is actually going to be helping people in their day-to-day activities. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do for the next 5-10 years. Hopefully it happens.
I feel like I would echo a lot of what Praveen is saying. Like, I do not have a plan. I maybe have a plan for the next 3 months and then reevaluate. I feel like at least it's not like my life is changing a lot, but the way that I feel about the work that I'm doing and how fulfilled I am can change in that amount of time. And one partner at our firm has said before, like, data or week to week, it doesn't feel like anything has changed, but quarter to quarter, things could completely change. And so it's like a weird time lapse continuum situation. But yeah, like I certainly do not have a 10-year plan. I don't have a 5-year plan or even a 1-year plan. And I think similar to Praveen, I personally like take things day to day and week to week and month to month, and just consistently evaluate whether or not what I'm doing is fulfilling me. And if there are roadblocks or speed bumps along the way, are those ones that I can live with and am totally fine with, or are those ones that I suddenly feel like I need to make a change? But for me, I think that the work that I do is still super interesting. I think that the people that I work with are awesome, engaging, and super smart. And I feel like I get paid really well. And so if I have that trifecta, it's like, what could be better? And so it's just kind of consistently evaluating and understanding what is important and if any of those things change. And if they do, then yeah, I have to figure out what other job would be more interesting or more compelling for me, like at this time. But yeah, I unfortunately have never and certainly right now do not have any sort of specific plan to live my life by.
So my side, guys, I've been 3.5, 4 years into full-time entrepreneurship now. So I've given myself a 5-year slug for that. So when I left banking, and then I said, look, for the next 5 years, whatever happens, I'm going to go full in and survive the jungle of building something. So I have about 1.5 years left on it, and I'm excited. So I'm starting a second startup now. I've started for the last 8 months. Things are going smoothly, but like nobody dies on base camp of Everest. So we haven't started the climb yet. So we'll figure out as things get more tough in the next 6 months. Now, if let's just say 1.5 years from now, I'm 35 and the startup fails, which is 99% chance usually, then I think the next 5-year slug for me would be to join like a Series C, Series B tech company, a startup. And for that reason is because then I don't have to worry about fundraising. I don't have to worry about hiring a lot of people. I can kind of focus on growing and being a GM or something along those lines. So that's kind of the near-term plan for what I want to do. The most important part from my perspective is I know what I don't want, right? And I think I don't want, KKR. I don't want Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs or, those jobs. I've done it and it's something that I don't want to do anymore at my stage. I enjoy time with family. I enjoy seeing people in real life and hanging out with them. I enjoy living a healthy life, and those things I value more than like a nice fancy business card with a company name that my grandma would know, right? So that's kind of the way I think about it, and that's kind of the next 5 to 6 year plan.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. That kind of wraps up our moderated section. We have some questions in the chat. So Alan is going to be leading that portion.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks, Neri. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to try to combine some of these questions. If any of you guys have an answer, feel free to jump in. One of the attendees was wondering if a business degree is required to be competitive in the fields of business, finance, fintech, especially today.
Yeah, I can answer for consulting, and that is definitely not. Like I said, all of my many of my classmates from business school did not have a business degree, and I'm pretty involved in hiring both at the undergrad and MBA levels at UI Parthenon, and we favor people equally who have sociology degrees, aerospace engineering degrees, you know, you name it. Like, the degree doesn't matter. It's more about pursuing something in undergrad that you're passionate about and interested in, and then telling the story of why you then want to do this job and kind of how it relates. But yeah, I guess the worst thing would be to pursue a degree because you feel like you have to do that in order to get a specific job, and then be super unfulfilled while you're doing it, because college is the best time of your life, and so you should be studying things that are really interesting to you. But I can't speak for banking, because I know that there are some specific like skill sets that are important to have, or tech, where I assume that coding and things like that are very important to have some background in.
No, I think Adele, you hit it on the head. So from banking perspective, I know tech could be different, but you're absolutely right. You know, guys, go for what you're passionate about. Look, ultimately, just from banking perspective, you do three things, right? You add numbers in Excel, anybody can do that. You move logos and objects on PowerPoint, anybody can do that. And you write Word documents or emails. So you don't need a specialized degree for that. So yeah, so don't be focused on, you know, pressured into just taking finance or accounting.
I would echo the two folks as well. So again, when I start hiring, it's basically the perspective that the person brings, and will he or she be an added? I mean, how will this additional person provide a different perspective to what we already have, so that we provide inclusive products. That's predominantly what's going on in our minds when we start like looking for a new candidate. So I mean, a degree to your name is it's just going to get you to the door, but the entrance and how you actually like fulfill that place is completely up to you, and it's how you look at it and the perspective that you bring in, all the good stuff with it.
Sweet. And just one last question before we let you guys go. You guys all have a master's degree of some sort. One of the attendees was wondering if you guys could talk a little more about the application process and whether or not graduating a quarter, 2 quarters early has anything to do or puts you at an advantage in this process.
I'll mention one thing. So my master's degree was a little bit different. I went for the wrong reasons because I wanted to get access to the network. And I think if you're going for that, if you don't have a network already, that's great. But I didn't come from UCLA or a US school. And for me, that was my ticket into the ballpark, and I needed that. And also I'm coming from engineering and kind of course correcting. The second part I think I want to answer for sure is that don't try to graduate early, guys. You have one life. Enjoy your time on campus. A lot of people, like, if I could go back to school and kind of really build more relationships and meet people and, enjoy every aspect of that school, and you guys are going to one of the top schools in the world, do it, right? You're not going to get this chance again. This is just 4 years. So use all of it. The next 60 years are going to go by like this. So don't waste these 4 years, go all of it. Don't try to graduate early. There's no award for that. And there's no race where someone's like, oh my God, look at this kid. He's 20 and he's an analyst. Like, nobody cares about those things. So enjoy your time while you're at the school.
Yeah, graduating 2 quarters early is, no one cares. I know it's a big decision for you now, but it's minute and like not important 1 or 2 years out of undergrad. Along the lines of what Sharjan said, I added a minor so that I didn't graduate early because I wasn't ready. I was like, I might as well take some more classes about like zoology and stuff. And so, yeah, I would definitely say like graduating early does not necessarily like give you any sort of advantage, I guess, unless you have a specific plan of wanting to study for like the LSAT or the GMAT or something like that and use that time for that. But even so, like I don't know if that's a compelling enough reason, if there are classes or other things that you're interested in taking. For me, business school was a career changer because I think it opened up many doors that I otherwise would not have had access to. And so I'm super thankful for it. The application process, it's stressful like anything else, but it's no more stressful than applying to undergrad. And so if you've successfully done that, which you have since you're here, then there's no reason that you should have any doubt that you can't be successful at doing that for any graduate program, and especially business.
I would echo like same comments. Nothing. Please don't like lose this time. This you never get it back in that sense. And again, as Adil rightly put it, like if how should I, as long as you guys are like authentic about what you're trying to do in your application, you should be good. Like there's nothing, you don't have to hide anything in that sense, or you don't have to like change yourself for the sake of just getting into something. You please be yourself. That's more important than anything else, because as I rightly put it, like we're not looking for a fit into the job description. We're looking for a person who's going to bring in the additional value that is going to like sort of shape things in the longer run. You're not looking for just fulfilling that specific position. We're looking for a person, an addition to the team, which is way more than just the job description. We cannot capture a person in the job description. That never happens. It's basically a process that we follow, quite frankly. But if you ask me, I'm not a big fan of it. It's more a person that we're trying to hire, and it's not a position that we're trying to fill. So that'd be my 2 cents.
And if you feel like you have to change yourself to fit into a job position, then you're probably not applying to the right job. That's probably your first clue that maybe there's something else that would be better suited to your interests and your needs.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. I was actually thinking about graduating a couple quarters early, but after what you guys said, definitely having second thoughts. With that being said, I think that concludes our panel. I think thank you so much, Adele, Shurjan, and Praveen, for taking time out of your busy schedules to come speak with us. Really enjoyed hearing your diverse perspectives from your extensive experiences in the business world. Thank you to the Sharpe Association and the Alumni Association for making all this possible. And yeah, thank you guys again so much. I really enjoyed hearing your perspectives. I definitely learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else learned a lot. And it sucks that we're in a virtual environment, but I wish we could give you all a big round of applause. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.